Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Blake Cousins. We're here with Billy Carson from Forbidden Knowledge. He's got a lot to say. We've heard of the major blockbuster theories with regards to what's going on in Egypt and what's going on below it. 2 miles below the surface of the Great Pyramids, we have something that could be extraordinary and could change the world forever. And we're going to get to that among a lot more stuff. The UFOs, they're coming in, and then we've got our documentaries. Washington, D.C. is talking about it. The president just spoke about it yesterday with regards to assets that the world can't even dream of. So quite incredible what's going on. Billy, thanks for joining us right here at Third Phase. How you doing?
Hey, great, man. It's an honor to be back on here, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You're the first I thought of when we heard the first news with regards to what's going on, the rumbling from underneath these major pyramids. What was your first impression of this news that was dropped? We're going to be showing some graphics here. Billy, go ahead.
My first impression was, I told you so. I had talked about this for the last 10 years, and then even in my book that came out 5.5 years ago, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, on page 34, I even put a rendering of what it might look like in the book with columns going deep beneath the earth, and in the book I say that they go on for miles. So this is something I had talked about for a while, based on the descriptions and some of the information in the verses of the Emerald Tablets themselves, and also some works from Herodotus and a few other figures that come from the ancient past. They had all in some way, both claims they had built this underground structure, but Herodotus and others had claimed to actually have had a chance to see it, which is amazing. And so I had known that it hypothetically could be down there, so I wrote about it 5.5 years ago, and even made a rendering of what it might look like. And now I'm on the right side of history once again.
Wow, that's incredible. And the implications of what you theorized 5 years before this even broke. And we're going to get into why the mainstream is not covering this at the moment. There's rumblings that they might be on top of it, but the implications of some of your theories, how far do you think civilization has gone back to create this mega structure if it's really there underneath the pyramids? This isn't kind of a prototype or a mistake. This is a one-time application. They knew what they're doing from the beginning, in my opinion. So how far back do you think this goes?
This goes back at least 36, 38,000, maybe 40,000 years. Now, what's interesting is the scientist, the head scientist, Filippo Biondi, who actually was in charge of the team of scientists that positioned this satellite directly over Giza. And thank goodness he did this. And of course, he did not go and get permission from the government or anything else. Thank goodness he didn't go ask for anything, because they would have told him no. He scanned from space with a satellite using a star scan, not any type of star scan, using specific type of star scan. And this was able to pick up minute vibrations in the earth, to then send that data of the vibration to a computer to create this new type of hybrid software, which can give you an image as to what's solid and what's not solid, and to recreate what's down there. And what they came back with is absolutely astounding. It's so astounding that the pyramids themselves are like nothing. It's like, this is insane. The pyramid's not even a big deal anymore. When you can really wrap your mind around what is underneath the Giza Plateau, it will blow you away. If we went to a developer and said, hey guys, we'd like to build this area underneath this bedrock, and then we'd like to put the bedrock back. And I've been in Egypt, and I've been standing directly on top of where the bedrock was cut. I just didn't know that that was the opening to get to this huge, massive structure. I had been in other areas underneath the pyramids, but never into that gaping wide area with all these columns and so forth. But I know the exact location where the cuts were made to open up the plateau. So you go to a developer, you say, hey, can you reproduce this this architectural template or blueprint underneath this bedrock, and then put the bedrock back, and it's going to have to encompass about 8 Burj Khalifas underground, because that's what can fit down there. 64,000 people can fit in that opening down there in that space. And they're going to say to you, you got $50 trillion in about 20 years. Because it's not something that they can just say, okay, sign the contract and give us a deposit and we'll start working on it tomorrow. This is an engineering feat greater than anything on earth at this exact moment. So when you think about this, you have to take all these theories, mud ramp theory, slaves built the pyramid theory, all these ridiculous theories, you got to throw them out the window, because this engineering feat is so great and so grand, it tops everything that we have built in today's modern society. And so you have to begin to ask a question. How did they do this, and why would they do this? Well, they did it because for them, it was easy. For us, we can't even fathom it, but for them, it was easy. You can't use the resources of your entire civilization to construct a structure, a mega structure underground like this that goes on for miles, unless you know it's going to work. You have to have something called foreknowledge. Because if you don't have foreknowledge and you build this and it fails, you destroyed the resources of your entire civilization on a whim. Can't happen. They knew that this was going to work. They knew how they were going to build it. They understood the process and the meaning and the purpose for it. And they created something that is so magnificent. I just recently saw the LiDAR scans, and I'll send that over to you to implement in this video. There's still energy moving under there. So we have now actual scans of the energy moving back and forth. Something is still active down there. So this is amazing, man. It's one of the greatest discoveries in human history.
Yeah, it's basically the major discovery of humankind, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If this is brought forth front, what's up with the government? Hawass basically said that these guys were amateurs, that they don't know what they're talking about, and the major media is still not touching it. Why would the Egyptian government not jump on top of this? This would create a massive tourist industry the world hasn't ever seen.
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One thing, I really do believe that they have some type of a gag order and they're being paid. And why do I say this? Well, the first thing is, in 2014, I went to the Great Pyramid with the gentleman named Muhammad Gamal and the woman that was the guide. I think her name was Iman. Yeah, Iman. We get to the entrance to go inside the Great Pyramid, and Iman is talking to one of the security and the Board of Antiquities representative. They brought me to meet him personally because I was going to start doing a lot of tours in Egypt. They're having this conversation, and they're both kind of like, their facial expressions are kind of shocking, and they're speaking in Arabic. And at the time, I didn't know a lot of Arabic, my first time being to Egypt. And I said, what's going on? What's the matter? And she said, something they just told me blew me away, that NASA owns the rights to the interior of the Great Pyramid.
What?
And they had a meeting about it, and they might, at some point in the future, they might shut down access to the interior of the Great Pyramid. And I'm going, what? So when you say, like, why would they shut this down? If you can remember, or I don't know if you knew this, India, the IRSO, they raised $3 million. That's it, only $3 million, and sent a satellite all the way to Mars and had it orbit Mars and transmit images of Mars back. The images came back in true color. It showed pockets of water. It showed the true color of Mars, and it showed light scattering blue atmosphere. And NASA instantly contacted them. The head of NASA at the time was Bolden. Mr. Bolden flew all the way to India. And within 3 weeks, he had signed a gag deal with India and paid them and made them partners with NASA and had them pull that image down and put up what they call a false color image, which means it's all red hued. Okay.
So NASA's basically
have a history of doing this.
NASA's just blocking out, taking over somebody's, $3 million to get these pictures that you're talking about. That's pennies on the dollar what NASA does. And then they pull off these high-res images, and then NASA swoops in and says, none of this, we're buying you out, gag order. And now, for the first time I think I've ever heard of this, that NASA owns the
rights to the access to the interior of the Great Pyramid. And they also own some of the rights to Chaco Canyon and a certain area in the Grand Canyon that I tried to go walk up in 2000, I think it was 2018. And I got stopped by guys with these black military type outfits on with no insignias, no logos, no badges, but they had they had AR-15s and black hats and dark glasses, and they stopped me from going in that area. I was told by the guide that we had you couldn't go over there, but I tried to sneak off when they were having lunch, and I got caught up, and it was a big story. But they stopped me, and I said, let me ask you a question. I'm going to back off, but why can't I come over here? Guess what they said? NASA owns the rights to this area, and it's private.
Wow.
Well, aren't we paying taxes to NASA in some kind of way? I think our taxes fund that program or whatever, but I don't know. But again, the NASA narrative comes up again. So India, Egypt, the Grand Canyon, Chaco Canyon, that's 4 places that I know now that NASA has some level of control on antiquities and ancient knowledge.
And don't forget space, all the videos that have been suppressed.
Yeah.
This is astonishing. So let's get to the function of this. Let's just go back in time, 40,000 years ago. Did this, in your opinion, happen in a short amount of time? Did it come from the skies and just kind of embed itself into the surface? Or what was the engineering and bottom line, the function of this thing?
Well, when you go into some of the ancient texts, you read in the text that Thoth is what his father taught me, who's known as Enki in the Sumerian tablets. And his father tells him it's time to fulfill the plan that we know of, or that ye know of. He said, get your crew together and get into the great ship of the master and, go handle business. And what the business was, what the mission was, he said that the fountains had receded and the temples were coming up out of the mud. So he tells his son Thoth to get his crew together, get into the skyship, and they sail upwards into the sky. They don't go across an ocean. They go up until the planet literally disappears. This is in the text. Then when they get to the place appointed, they said, beneath us, we see the children of the land of Chem. They're talking about ancient Kemet, pre-dynastic Egypt. Before it was called Egypt by the Greeks, it was actually called Kemet. He says he can see the people beneath down. So they decide to descend. So again, this is a word that's demonstrating height and being above something, altitude. They descend down to the land. When he opens up the doors to the ship and starts to come out, these people, they call them barbarians, come to attack him, probably because they're trying to protect their territory. He says he raises his staff and sends out a ray of vibration, stopping him still as fragments of stone of a mountain. So he has this kind of a non-lethal stun weapon. So I started looking into, can a weapon like this actually even exist today? And I found the active denial system in the US military. I'll send you the images for this. It's in my book. I wrote this in my book 5 years ago. The book, the image of the active denial system from the military, the link to the source, everything's in there. And they can send a beam, a ray of energy at a group of people looking to attack or riot, and they can actually freeze them in their tracks. They can make them feel like they're in pain. They can make them vomit. They can put voices in their head. They can make them even feel like they're on fire. It's a repelling, non-lethal frequency that Thoth says he has this 36,000 years ago in the ancient text. But now he says, now as I'm here with these people, he says they begin to grovel at his feet because he's showing them his magic science. That translates today into advanced technology. So they believe he's a god. But as they grovel at his feet, he stops them and says, no, I'm not a god. I'm a son of Atlantis. And I'm here to bring you back up to a high level of civilization. Meaning at one point in the past, prior to this great catastrophe, probably the Younger Dryas incident, they were already a high civilization. And he had been there before. But he says, I'm here to bring you back up to a high level. And he says, long we stayed in Chem, yet long and yet long again. So he's saying we were there for years and years and years, helping to rebuild this civilization after this great flood. And then he said to his team when it was done, spread out around the world and duplicate what we did here. And that's why you see similar temple styles, similar structures, similar pyramid styles all over the planet. They were the master architects, and they had humans that they had worked with and trained and taught the sacred knowledge of this construction technique, these masons, them along with these other beings called the Shetu, worked with the people to help construct these megalithic sites all over the world. So we have the evidence of how it was done and who did it. It's all inside these ancient texts and tablets, which date back 36 to 38,000 years ago, which makes perfect sense because if you understand the alignment of the Great Sphinx with the constellation of Leo, if you go back one precessional period, like some people do, you find out that that's around the time of the Ice Age. Not a perfect time to be building a Sphinx when there's ice everywhere. But if you go back another couple precessional periods, all of a sudden you're in a perfect time zone to peace, tranquility, a blossoming golden age. And Thoth says at that time, he says, builded I the great pyramid, patterned after Earth's force, so that it too might remain through the ages. That's in the text. So he's the one who's the master architect of this design, and you can see that implemented all around the world.
Incredible. The whole aspect of the history and how the connection around the world of these megastructures, these pyramids. Let me ask you about some of the science with regards to this application. So we're using satellites to do this. Have they proven proof of concept on other locations where we know exactly what's underneath the ground to show that this technology is working? And have they done this to other pyramids in Mexico, for example?
Great question. Phenomenal question. So the reason why they came into debunk right away, first of all, is because they definitely have a control structure that they don't want to oppose, and they don't want to get those people pissed off. That's number one. They tried to debunk it before even looking at the research materials. Now, I'm not sure if they had successfully done this before. I know that they have tested it prior to Egypt and got good results. And then they said, hey, let's try this over the pyramids and see what's down there. So they did test it out. But the critics of this, like Zahi Hawass and a couple of other mainstream architects, try to say that the synthetic aperture radar, which is called the SAR, S-A-R, it can't penetrate 2 kilometers underground. But see, that tells you that they didn't read the research paper, because unlike ground penetrating radar, this Filippo Biandi's SAR technology uses something called X-band microwaves at 10 gigahertz with a 3-centimeter wavelength. And that actually penetrates the Earth. And then what it does, it sends the frequency in there, and then it senses all of the surrounding minute vibrations. So instead of directly scanning underground, it doesn't do that. It detects subtle surface vibrations and minute shivers that trigger this resonance. And that resonance then is converted into data, which then is converted into a rendering of what's down there. It's a revolutionary technique. I've been trying to get a hold of this Filippo Biondi because I want to help him fund whatever he needs to fund to move this over other areas like Antarctica, where the research bases are, what's underneath the ice, what's underneath the pyramids in Antarctica. I want to find out what's in the jungles of the Amazon, what's in Peru in the jungles, what's in all these, in Teotihuacan. So I've been trying to get a hold of him because I want to help really push him forward and help him raise whatever capital he needs to keep repositioning this satellite and get all this data.
Yeah. ASAP, basically. Who knows what's going, just opens everything wide open. Again, the major media, why isn't Elon Musk? You would think Elon Musk would be all over this. You would think the president would want to take some glory. And, the major media, obviously we're going to get I know the answer to this, but my God, aren't they ever going to just at least cover this so it just doesn't, go to the wayside? Because I'm a little concerned that this story came out really strong, but it's losing legs. And I think, it's kind of dire that we get real science. I know these guys are individual scientists. They're doing their own thing, but it's got to be open wide. And obviously, I know what the answer is. NASA's going to get involved. Never a straight answer. Whatever. It's national security issues. What's the reason? Why can't they give me...
it's fading into obscurity already. It's being left up to people like yourself and myself, excuse me, to really focus on this information and bring it forward to the people and break it down and break down the science. And it's up to us to maybe, like I said, to get with this research team and try to find ways we can continue to support them so they can continue to do this, because it always comes down to, at the end of the day, to money. But, a lot of these people have they're like I said, they have these gag orders. Elon Musk, for example, brilliant guy. He's actually, obviously he's built a lot of companies, become very, very, very successful billionaire. He's got SpaceX, which is primarily funded by the U.S. government. They moved it into private space so that people like you and I can't put FOIA requests in to find out what the hell's going on behind the scenes and where the money's going. So they moved it into private space. So he's one of their top vendors, basically. He's got this project. But when you take on a project like that, and I learned this from going to the Space Symposium in 2018 in Colorado, I had TS clearance for private space. That's top secret clearance for private space because I have a company called First Class Space Agency, which doesn't build rocket ships, but does look to develop different types of R&D and technology papers for complementary things that will eventually revolutionize space travel. And so I got a chance to be in there with these people, and I heard how they talk and what they're saying. There's a lot of restrictions on what they can and can't say based on the contracts that they have with the government and other corporations. So even with TS, there were still things being redacted within an open conversation. What I did gain from it was that private space and technology companies are about 300 years ahead of the general population technologically. It used to be about 50, 60 years ahead. They're about 300 years ahead right now. And I do believe also that people at the top, these multi-billionaires, and even like presidents and so forth, they may have access to some of this knowledge because they're in those circles of people all the time. And they understand what's really going on and what they can and can't say that can turn over the apple cart. Is once people find out that billionaires are going to be migrating to Mars and creating a breakaway civilization, and they weren't invited, it can create an uproar. It can create riots in the streets. It can turn down the stock market and all these other kind of crazy things. That's why Elon says, we're going to go to Mars on a one-way trip and we're not coming back. And so what makes a billionaire want to go to Mars on a one-way trip when they have the creature comforts of this incredible, beautiful planet? They can go and do anything. They can sail on a yacht. They can go to the top of a mountain. They can, go to beautiful paradises and have maids and be, taken care of hand and foot. Well, because they know that when they get to Mars, there's probably already a hidden infrastructure, possibly underground, waiting on them, and they will not live in a tin can for the rest of their life inside of a spacesuit until they die, that they're going to go up there and they're going to live probably a fairly decent life. So I think that the point I'm making is they are aware of all of these particular findings and discoveries, but they don't comment or talk about them because they have their own agendas, and they also have their own gag orders. They have their own top secret, things that they've signed off on, where they really aren't gonna comment too much on specific things simply because there's an agenda and a path that they're going on, and they don't want that interrupted.
The iceberg, what is going on above the surface and below the surface of Egypt is on everybody's minds right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, when he just spoke moments ago, saying that there's still activity going on over there. My first question is this thing functional right now? Maybe it's a working mechanism and we're using it somehow or another. What is your opinion, the purpose of this device?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that word, device, because it is technology. Make no mistake about it. We're talking about technology. We're not talking about some ancient underground cavern that was just built just because the people said, you know what, let's carve out 8 Burj Khalifas and just have an empty space. No, it's a device. Above ground, you see the Great Pyramid and you see the Khafre and Menkaure. You see the pyramids there. And you go, okay, this is a beautiful sight. What an amazing accomplishment. And people, what they don't understand is that the Great Pyramid itself, for example, including the other two, but the Great Pyramid, you look at it, it's not a Lego block set. It's 2.3 million individually, specifically created pieces of an interlocking puzzle. No two blocks are the same. And when someone can wrap their mind around that, they begin to understand that the Great Pyramid itself is literally made from interlocking puzzle pieces and not Lego blocks, then the whole mud ramp theory and all these other ideas they came up with have to be tossed out. But then you look at the pyramid and you discover it has encoded wisdom in it. If you take the base of the pyramid and calculated by some very simple mathematics, you can come up with the number of days in a year. You can calculate through the Grand Gallery, you can calculate the speed of light. The longitude will give you the speed of light. Throughout the pyramid structure itself and the size of the stones from the base to the apex, you can calculate so many different things. You can even calculate the mass of the Earth. If you take the Great Pyramid and scale it up 43,200 times, you discover that at 432, it fits into the sphere of the Earth itself. So it makes the Great Pyramid an actual representation of planet Earth. Through also some very simple mathematics, through the calculations of the dimensions of the Great Pyramid, you can calculate the mass of the actual Earth, not the surface, but the entire mass, everything inside all the way out to the crust, you can calculate. You can calculate the speed of the Earth on its axis, the speed of the Earth around the sun, the distance from the Earth to the sun, the distance from the Earth to the moon. The circumference of the sun can be calculated, the speed of the sun around the Milky Way galaxy, and even the speed of the Milky Way galaxy around the local cluster of galaxies can all be calculated from the dimensions of the Great Pyramid, which is just like mind-blowing. So that's the surface, okay?
I know.
So
just
that alone will blow you away. You're like, holy crap.
Yeah. Crazy.
Now, beneath, you have this area that, for example, with the SAR scan revealed 5 small room-like structures within the Khafre pyramid, centrally located above the chamber known as the Balanzi chamber, which contains a sarcophagus previously misidentified as a pharaoh's tomb. We know that it's not a tomb. We know now, even mainstream now knows, it's not a sarcophagus to bury a person, that it's giving off a particular vibration. It's still kicking out some type of energy right now today. And that's something that they can actually agree on. And the vertical shafts extend over 6,500 feet across and reaching depths of 2,000 feet beneath the pyramid. And what they're saying is, okay, that's under one of them, but that interconnects with everything beneath the Great Pyramid and the Menkaure Pyramid. It's a huge labyrinth. I've been beneath the bedrock 65 meters at the Great Pyramid in the subterranean shaft, which hardly anybody gets access to. Less than 1/10 of 1% of the world even knows that exists, and less than 1/10 of 1% of those people have ever gone down there. And when you get down to the bottom, there's another area that goes another 30 meters down. And when you get to that area, there's an open area where you can walk around. People sometimes, if I take some people down there, we'll meditate or just take photos. But there's another area you can get to, but that area now has been blocked. That leads to the magnificent discovery that we're talking about right now. And also those tunnels down there, not only do they connect there at Giza, they connect from Giza all the way to Djoser, all the way to the Bent Pyramid, all the way to Saqqara, to the Step Pyramid. I've gone literally almost a mile beneath the Step Pyramid in a labyrinth where I actually got lost one time. Fortunately, we had a guide. He got lost with us, but he realized where we made our mistake, and we were able to get out. We could have stayed down there for weeks. It goes on for miles. And there's another area under there that they call it avenues. It's not us, not the researchers like us calling it avenues. Mainstream calls it an avenue, and there's avenues going in each direction, underground. And we had a 500-meter high-powered laser. Couldn't see the end of that tunnel because it doesn't end. According to our homegrown guide and Egyptologists, those tunnels, not only do they run from there all over the place, but there's even a couple of them that run all the way to the Ziggurat of Ur in Iraq. Who built these avenues, quote unquote, tunnels? Somebody with advanced knowledge and advanced technology. And when you look in the ancient Sumerian tablets, it really gives you something revealing. Enlil and Enki both build fortresses. Enlil decided to build his fortress above ground, and Enki decided to build his fortress beneath the earth. He used a machine called that which crunches and that which crushes. It was the name of the machine. I guess that's the translation. And he used it to open the earth up and then to build a magnificent kingdom beneath the crust or beneath the bedrock. And so they're telling us that these places existed back then. So it didn't surprise me that it would be linked and connected to the Ziggurat of Ur all the way in Iraq. It's mind-blowing stuff, man.
Wow. This is the time to be alive, right, Billy? Just insane what's going on here. And, disclosures, the battle's on. We just watched and dropped Battle for Disclosure, and it took the
Hmm.
#1 spot on Amazon and
Yeah.
iTunes for weeks on end. It was a major deal, and we've got a follow up to Battle for Disclosure back with
Mm.
the whole team, Dr. Greer, yourself, and we're going to be announcing that date and dropping the trailer real soon. But just a few
Nice.
days ago, we released Nexus to Disclosure. The truth is classified with regards to women getting involved. These veterans, Linda Moulton Howe, Eisenhower. Let's just play the trailer real quick.
The government of the United States, since the 1940s, has classified reality. That's where we are, in classified reality. The truth is classified.
This is probably the most dangerous field to be in because they really don't want humanity to know the kind of information that we put out there.
And we have breaking news now, a Pentagon review of decades of government investigations into UFO sightings.
It's a war for truth. It's a war for disclosure. The American public, they really want to know. They're tired of being lied to.
We've had a heck of a lot of pushback about this hearing. We've had members of Congress who fought us. We've had members of the intelligence community and also the Pentagon.
There were some attempts on my life.
I've had many death threats.
We're following you. We know where you are.
Let's face it, disclosure's a dangerous game.
There is way more to this picture than we can imagine.
These extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien.
The biggest threat to them is our sovereignty.
Operation Majestic 12 is created.
This all needs to come out. The truth needs to come out. I think humans need to get ready.
Extraterrestrials are here. They have been based beneath the basins of the oceans and seas of planet Earth for thousands, millions of years.
We're dealing with gatekeepers and a total suppression of information and knowledge.
The leaders, everyone, telling all humans the truth.
These people are idiots. I mean, these people who think they are in charge.
I'm going to pick up what I personally think is the single most important whistleblower leak.
At some point, our government is no longer going to have control over this.
All right, that was Nexus to Disclosure. The truth is classified. It's available right now, Amazon, iTunes. Billy, what do you make? I know your wife's really dedicated. If we do the sequel, she's definitely going to be involved with the sequel to Nexus. What about women in this field? There's some good ones,
important.
and it's a tough world out there for women to get into this.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is tough for women to get into it. Partially, one reason is because women have been suppressed and oppressed for obviously hundreds of years, and not thousands of years, really. Their voices are always kind of suppressed under the masculine energy. So, you know, it's important for their voices to get heard because they have their own perspective and understanding of things. And of course, extremely highly intelligent people. So we have to, at some point, we have to acquiesce in some way and let these women get their knowledge out, their research out. Some of the names you mentioned are some of the greatest female researchers that we have in this field, and they deserve and need to be heard, not as women, but as true researchers that are just as equal and as just impressive as the guys. And it's very, very important that we get the balance, because anytime you have something out of balance, if you have too much masculinity and not enough feminine energy, it's going to be out of balance. We want to get a picture. What we're doing with these documentaries and these podcasts and all this research is we're trying to put the pieces of a puzzle together and create a picture. But you can't see the mosaic if it's only one side, one form of energy. You get a partial image, but sometimes the female energy will bring another perspective, and they'll see and find things during research that a male's mind or a man's masculine mind won't even pick up or distinguish. And so we get that balance. And once we get the balance, then we can see a much broader picture. We get a better idea of what might really be going on. So I think that's incredible. I think that's utterly important. I know I just interviewed Maria Wheatley for my podcast the other day. And I told her, you know, because, you know, again, with her, like people just keep calling her a great female researcher. I said, you're just a great researcher. You know, she was very thankful for that because I told her, like, you're one of the best in the world at what you specifically do. And I want to recognize you as that. So we got to get the feminine energy. We got to bring the balance. And of course, they also need to be encouraged to do it as well. It's not just that we're suppressing them. It's just that also they've got to step up and say, hey, I'm here and I know this stuff. So let's go. Let's bring this knowledge out. So I think it's a little bit of both, because also women have been programmed also into becoming more humble and quiet. And this is a man's field or whatever, but we have to let them step up and talk, because there are some great minds out there and we need to get access to those minds.
Yeah, well said there, Billy. Paula Asteri approached us with kind of her thought process with a documentary that would feature an all-women kind of panel, and we're like,
Nice.
who do you got on the table here? And she brought up some names, and where the Cousins brothers said, yeah, let's do it, and we just dropped it. It was kind of a surprise. It came out of nowhere, and it's taking the charts over there on Amazon right now and Apple. So we're proud of it. It's an interesting one. And people should watch it. And I can't wait to put out our new documentary, another one that's just right around the corner, a follow-up to Battle for Disclosure. I'm going to be dropping the trailer. We're going to talk about that here maybe in the next couple weeks and get you, Billy, back on. What a roller coaster this episode was. What's going on here in the future? You got an awards ceremony, or you got an awards voting competition going down? And we're humbled to say we're nominated. Happy about that. Tell us about it.
It's the third annual Forbidden Conscious Awards coming up this summer. Voting is open right now on consciousawards.com. So you can go to consciousawards.com. You can begin to vote for your favorite and greatest researchers, producers, podcasters, influencers, everyone doing something within the conscious community that's doing anything worthwhile. You find them there, vote for them. Of course, Third Phase of the Moon is nominated again. So we want to get the nominations. We want to get the votes in on that nomination. So hopefully we can hand you guys that 10-pound quartz crystal pyramid trophy this year. That would be phenomenal. I'd love to see you guys have it, because your work is just second to none. It's so incredible. You do a great job and you really deserve it. So we have the Conscious Awards, and we have our Egypt tour coming up this October. And there's probably about 6 or 7 spots left for Egypt. So if someone wants to come to Egypt with me, hang out with me, I will be your guide, and I will take you underground into areas that nobody's ever seen before. And I'll take you to the halls of Amenti that Thoth talks about in the Emerald Tablets. And you'll see the rejuvenation chambers. You'll touch them. You'll take pictures with them. You'll be blown away at what you see down there. But you got to register, so that's on our website, Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.com.
So how many seats are left? I think they just got taken up.
People are
going to jump on. People are going to jump on that. Actually, we're heading to Turkey, Istanbul, Göbekli Tepe next month too. So it's going to a lot of stuff ahead of us. So a lot of adventures. I know you've been there. Yeah. So again, let's catch up before you get on your Egyptian tour and bring some more disclosure, Billy. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
On Third Phase of Moon. What a show.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right. That was Billy Carson, forbiddenknowledge.com. We're going to supply the contact link. Appreciate him. We appreciate you joining us tonight right here at Third Phase of Moon. Keep your eyes on the skies, everybody. We're not alone. We'll see you next time.